Hello, I'm Minyoung Seo, and I'm from the Triple IXL Lab, run by Professor Hyung-Hyuk Kang of Kyunghee University. Today, I will present my work named Toward Virtual Stairwalking. I hope you enjoy my presentation. People usually enjoy virtual reality on a flat play area. Then, what if a user wants to climb or descend stairs in the virtual environment? This topic has hardly been studied. Some previous work have proposed hardware interface to simulate stairwalking motion. However, hardware interfaces are often bulky and expensive. They are sometimes risky. Some other previous work have proposed installation of a small bump on the floor to provide the hefty stimuli of the edge of the stair. However, the real bump restricts the design of the virtual world and the usual locomotion. In this study, we tackled the mentioned limitation of a previous work. Therefore, our goal is to provide users a realistic sensation of stairwalking in virtual environment, while allowing VR users to walk on the flat surface without additional instrument. We developed our idea allowing the following flow. We observed that most VR applications apply the user movement to the movement of the virtual avatar. Then, people can feel the virtual world through the virtual avatar. From this point, we wondered that people perceive the sensation of stairwalking if we match the timing of real foot touching the floor with that of the virtual foot touching the floor, like this video. Can people perceive the sensation of stairwalking? Can people perceive the discrepancy between the real motion and virtual motion? To test our idea, we first formulate the remapping function. We collected the actual motion data to formulate the realistic remapping functions. We recorded the user head, waist, and feet motion data of actual stairwalking. The motion data is measured by using HMD and trackers. We recorded the motion of walking up and walking down the stairs. After analyzing the data, we observed that the trajectory of the head and waist are similar in both walking up and walking down motions. In contrast, we observed that the trajectories of the feet were a parabolic motion, which significantly differed from those of head and waist. We also observed that the height of the head and waist did not change during the first step on walking up motions and during the last step of the walking down motions. Based on the collected actual motion data, we designed foot and head and waist remapping functions. Let's take a look at the foot remapping function first. See the following equation. To help you understand, we prepared an animation. It is difficult to control ascending motion of foot because we don't know how much the user will lift their foot. In contrast, we know how much the user is going to lower the foot in descending motions because the user's foot will touch the floor. Therefore, our technique mainly controls the virtual foot in the descending motion. T-top is the time when the foot reaches the top, and it divides the parabolic motions into ascent and descent part. Before finding the T-top, the virtual foot rises to the height of the real foot, because the remapping function is applied differently between ascent and descent parts. In this case, alpha is provided and it changes the mapping ratio between visual and physical motions. But this will be dealt with in detail in another chapter. Then theta is found through the most recent time the foot starts to ascend, height of the stairs, and the velocity of the rear foot. After finding it, calculate the difference in height between the virtual foot and the virtual stair and track the location of the actual foot in real time. This allows the virtual foot to touch the virtual stair when the real foot touches the floor. With the head and waist remapping function, we dynamically control the height of the virtual head and waist to mimic the high change of stair walking motions. We observe that no significant difference exists between the trajectories of the head and waist in walking up and down the stair as discussed earlier. Therefore, we apply the same remapping function to the head and waist. The equation is based upon a sigmoid function and its transition duration and stiffness are adjusted by T and A respectively. This is simulation result of the head remapping. It shows that the trajectories of the virtual head successfully mimics the head motion of observed trajectories, even though the height of the real head motion does not change. In our internal test, we propose head and waist remapping function successfully provided a realistic sensation of walking up and down the stairs. To provide a more realistic experience, we exploited the concept of visual gain. Visual gain is to change the mapping ratio between visual and physical motions. Applying the visual gain may induce stronger self-motion because it changes the strength of the visual stimulus. In our remapping equation, the strength of the visual gain can be adjusted by the value of alpha. We assume two hypotheses about visual gain. The first figure is about hypothesis 1. When alpha is 1, there is no difference between virtual and real foot. See yellow line. When the alpha is greater than 1, the virtual foot goes higher than the real foot. The path of the virtual foot is marked by a pink line. In this case, we assume it would induce stronger self-motion than alpha is 1 because it makes virtual foot motion more noticeable. This second figure is about hypothesis 2. In contrast to hypothesis 1, we assume the alpha is less than 1 would induce stronger self-motion than alpha is 1 because it makes user move the virtual foot with greater physical motion. With hypothesis 2, we conduct an experiment to test our hypothesis and identify how much visual gain should be applied to enhance the user perceived self-motion. We decided to test the sample value of alpha in the range of 0.4 to 1.6 with step of 0.2 for both directions. In each trial, participants were asked to walk up or walk down the virtual stairs. For each direction, a test block was composed of 7 trials of stair walking, and each participant went through 10 blocks. 7 trials defined by 7 distinct alpha values, and their order was counterbalanced between each block. After completing each trial, ask participants to choose whether the perceived sensation of stair walking was realistic or unrealistic. Through the internal test, we have found that some users have a hobby of not lifting the foot high enough when walking down the stairs. This reduces the duration of flight and increases the amount of high change in each time step. It increases the probability that the user would feel that their body is being controlled strangely. So, we attach a 6 cm high bump to the front of the stairs to make user lift their foot higher unconsciously. The experimental results are presented in figure, where the x-axis shows the applying visual gain and the y-axis shows the probability that participants evaluate the virtual stair walking as realistic. When walking up the stair, the most realistic gain was greater than 1. Therefore, we speculate that increase the visual cues and decrease the physical cues can provide a more realistic experience when walking up the stairs. In constraint, the most realistic gain was less than 1 when walking down the stairs. Accordingly, we speculated that decrease the visual cues and increase the physical cues can provide a more realistic experience when walking down the stairs. The results demonstrate that applying visual gain of 1.193 and 0.822 to motions of ascending and descending the stairs were accepted as the most realistic respectively. We conduct an application test to investigate whether the proposed technique successfully increases the user perceived presence and provides a possible user experience. To validate our expectation, we conduct the test, which is a comparative within-subject test with 4 types of test conditions as shown in Table 1. The test was conducted individually for each of the climbing and descending stairs. The control condition is 2 climbing and descending stairs without applying gain and without bump. The gain applied condition is to proceed without a bump while applying the most realistic visual gain. The bump applied condition is to proceed without applying gain while applying bump. The gain and bump applied condition is to proceed while applying gain and bump. And the order of the test condition and direction were counterbalanced between participants. This video is about climbing and descending stairs in the application test. After performing each case twice in succession, we asked the participant to fill in the IPQ and SAQ. SAQ includes 5 categories for aesthetic, discomfort, stability, reality, and utility. Both questionnaires were answered on a 7-point Likert scale. Also, we conducted an open-ended interview to gather the participant thoughts, feeling, experience, and preference. SSQ was also investigated. Now let's see the result. The IPQ used both subscales, general presence, special presence, environment, and experience realism. We perform a pre-given test. It revealed that applying the appropriate visual gain to our locomotion technique can increase the user's sense of presence both in walking up and down the virtual stairs. In other words, our technique seemed to successfully induce stronger self-motion, even if we did not use virtual bump to make users lift their foot higher. The response to the SAQ are shown in figure. We performed the pre-given test. The test revealed that applying the appropriate visual gain to our locomotion technique can increase reality and utility. It is noteworthy that analysis of SSQ revealed that our technique did not cause any cyberskinnics. Finally, let me summarize our presentation. We propose a motion remapping based locomotion technique to provide the sensation of virtual stair walking. Our technique dynamically remapped the user's walking motion on a flat surface to the advertised walking motion on staircase. We find out that applying visual gain of 1.193 and 0.822 to motion of climbing and descending the stairs were accepted as the most realistic respectively. We found out that the user perceived presence was significantly enhanced when we apply visual gain. We expect that it can usually be applied to commercial application as the proposed technique only needs visual cue control. While using this technique, VR user can enjoy various activities that can occur on the staircase, such as sudden battle on the staircase and VR tourism. Thank you for your attention, and feel free to ask any question.